When the fossil in the soil first revealed its true form in the rock strata of western Liaoning, it sent a shudder through the entire paleontological world that remains unsolved to this day. Sharp fangs, a peculiar maxillary sinus structure, and that deep, eerie groove on the surface of its teeth, everything seemed to point to a terrifying conclusion. It was named Sinornithosaurus, a feathered dinosaur hunter suspected by the scientific community of possessing lethal venom glands. In countless scientific deductions and documentaries, it always hides in the shadows of tropical rainforests, using venom to bring a cold and painful death to its prey. However, when we strip away millions of years of prejudice and brush away the heavy dust on the rock layers, the truth that occurred on those distant Cretaceous nights has an extreme tenderness that is quite the opposite. Tonight, let us, with the gently flickering hearth and this story you need not try hard to remember, walk into its true life. In that ancient world undisturbed by humans and where starlight was as pure as water, the secret of Sinornithosaurus was never associated with killing. On the contrary, when night completely shrouded that ancient volcanic forest, its true talent would quietly awaken in the deepest darkness. That so-called toxin that terrified all living creatures was actually a sleeping potion mixed personally by the creator to comfort the entire forest. Whenever the first star rose in the night sky, Sinornithosaurus would unfold its wings with delicate feathers and begin to weave one beautiful dream after another among the treetops. Cretaceous western Liaoning was a land full of upheaval and vitality, where the roar of volcanoes often broke the tranquility of the day. Searing magma and widespread volcanic ash meant the air was always suffused with a faint smell of sulfur, and the competition for survival here was particularly brutal. During the day, Sinornithosaurus always hid carefully among dense ginkgo and cycad thickets. Its body was not massive, even somewhat slender. Its mottled feathers appeared a nearly dull grayish-brown in the sunlight, allowing it to blend perfectly with the dry bark and dead leaves around it. Other predators chased and roared frantically through the forest, biting and tearing until they bled just for a tiny space to survive. But Sinornithosaurus always seemed detached from this frenzy. There was no fury in its eyes, only an innate, overly calm restraint. Due to the distinctiveness of its body structure, its movements during the day even seemed somewhat sluggish, and it was often ostracized and misunderstood by its own kind. In the eyes of other dinosaurs, this fellow with useless fangs who did not like to fight was simply a complete anomaly. It would often lie quietly on conifer branches more than 10 meters high, its long tail hanging down along the tree trunk, letting the day's commotion surge past below like a tide. It was waiting for the moment when sunlight would retreat completely below the horizon, because only darkness was the stage where its soul truly awakened. When the last sliver of twilight was swallowed by the night sky, the Cretaceous forest began to fall into a slightly uneasy silence. Darkness did not bring absolute safety. Instead, it made many diurnal dinosaurs more anxious, and they made uneasy low calls in the undergrowth. Just at this time, Sinornithosaurus, lying on an ancient broadleaf tree, slowly opened its eyes, its pupils quietly dilating in the darkness. A marvelous change began to occur to it. This was ancient magic that no one had ever seen during the day. Its naturally dull feathers actually began to light up from the roots, inch by inch, with an extremely faint, extremely gentle purple fluorescence. It was not a piercing bright light, but a shadowy aura like violets blooming in the night, with a jade-like texture. As the fluorescence spread, the tissue in its upper jaw, called venom glands by later generations, began to secrete faster. It was a transparent liquid capable of emitting a strange and clear fragrance. This fragrance was not overwhelming, it mixed in the cool night wind, like the quiet scent of soil after rain combined with ancient wood. Sinornithosaurus straightened up slightly, it lightly preened the feathers on its chest and wings with its sharp claws, its movements as gentle as caressing porcelain. As it preened, those tiny scales attached to the feathers began to fall off, stained with fluorescence and fragrance, turning into fine powder visible to the naked eye. The wind in the forest became exceptionally gentle at this time, as if also cooperating with the ritual Sinornithosaurus was about to begin. It stood on a thick branch extending horizontally into mid-air, its body leaning forward slightly, its long tail maintaining perfect balance. It slowly, and at an extremely slow frequency, began to flap its feathered wings, without making any flapping noises. With every rising and falling of its wings, millions of faint purple incandescent powders drifted down from the treetops in a sweeping manner. These powders drew elegant arcs in the night sky, like silent purple snowflakes that would only descend in the deep night. They passed through dense pine needles, through giant cycad leaves, and softly fell on those creatures that were anxious in their nests. A Psittacosaurus that was naturally shivering with fear of predators suddenly relaxed its tense body the moment it touched this purple powder. It took a deep breath of the quiet fragrance suffusing the air, its eyelids became incredibly heavy, and it finally submissively buried its head into its warm wings. Sinornithosaurus gazed at all this condescendingly from the treetop. There was no predatory greed in its layers of eyes, only an elder-like kindness and concern. Its magic was spreading across the entire western Liaoning forest, completely erasing the day's anxiety, fear, and fatigue from this land. Inch by inch, the power of the hypnotic fluorescent toxin reached its peak in the deep night. The entire forest, usually unbearably noisy, was now so quiet that only the breath of the breeze could be heard. Those predators that were savage on ordinary days also could not resist this gentle call from on high at this time, and one after another fell into a deep sleep behind huge rocks. Their bodies rose and fell evenly with their breathing, and all vigilance and hostility were gently dissolved at this moment by Sinornithosaurus's powder. Sinornithosaurus stopped flapping its wings, it lay back on its own branch, the purple light around its body still quietly flashing. It was not in a hurry to sleep. As a dream weaver, it had to wait in solitude for this long beautiful dream created entirely by it. The volcano in the distance was still spitting red tongues of fire, but against the purple glimmer, even that blazing magma seemed to become quiet and tame. Sinornithosaurus closed one eye and continued to gaze at the infinite night sky with its other large eye, where the Milky Way was pouring down like a waterfall. What was it thinking about? Perhaps it thought of nothing. It was just immersed in this absolute tranquility that transcended species and transcended life and death. Time and space seemed to lose their concepts in this forest. A minute and 10,000 years had no essential difference here. Its heartbeat frequency also began to become extremely slow, every beat steady and strong, maintaining a perfect synchronization with the ancient pulse of this young planet. This deep night vigil was not without cost. Whenever the first ray of dawn appeared on the horizon, the magic would begin to fade. As the temperature rose, the purple fluorescence on Sinornithosaurus's feathers began to grow fainter and fainter, finally changing back again into that unremarkable grayish-brown. That strange and clear fragrance that brought peace to the mind also gradually dissipated in the morning mist, replaced by the dampness and vitality of a new day. The creatures in the forest began to open their eyes one after another. They felt unprecedentedly refreshed, but no one knew what happened last night. They would only think it was another ordinary night where they slept particularly sweetly, and then continue to throw themselves into a new round of the cruel competition for survival. Sinornithosaurus buried its head deeply within its own wings. It felt a wave of deep fatigue belonging to after the night. During the day, it would once again become that small dinosaur misunderstood by its own kind, spied on by natural enemies, and appearing somewhat clumsy and lonely. It had to endure the glare of sunlight, endure the clamor of the day, and all kinds of infamy bestowed upon it by later scientists. But it did not feel aggrieved by this, because in its dull memory, as long as there were nights, it possessed the power to protect the entire forest. Those lives that had been comforted by its purple light, although they never thanked it during the day, their safe survival was the best echo for it. Millions of years of time were like a long storm, turning the Cretaceous forest, volcanoes, and Sinornithosaurus's body all into cold stone. When human experts study those grooves on its teeth under a microscope, they will never be able to detect those gentle fluorescent powders that once existed. Science can only record its skeletal length, record its sharp fangs and claws, and classify it as a dangerous, venomous primitive dinosaur. But this not matter? Real history never just written in cold academic papers, it remains more in every quiet night. That purple fluorescence that once spread across the western Liaoning forest has actually never truly disappeared. It has passed through a tunnel of tens of millions of years of time and space and come to your side. Now, please turn your head and look out the window. Is not that deep night sky the same vault that Sinornithosaurus gazed at back then? Tonight's breeze, there seems also to be a whiff of faint ancient fragrance, that is it crossing time and space, softly flapping its soft wings. Those purple hypnotic powders are currently turning into this low and slow voiceover, quietly falling by your pillow, smoothing all your fatigue. You no longer need to feel anxious for tomorrow, nor do you need to deal with the day's commotion. In this room, you are absolutely safe. Close your eyes, and with that gentle Sinornithosaurus, loosen all your defenses and sink into this sweetest dreamland woven by ancient starlight. Good night.